Hello, my Aloha tribe, and welcome to the Aloha Perspective, where you get a little bit of something and a whole lot of everything. Happy Friday. It is Friday. You heard the pause. I had to think about it. I had to think about it because yesterday, Dad and I did the Lord of the Rings trilogy, always a favorite of mine. It's movies that we love, and just a fun fact about those movies. Good morning, Sammy. I just saw her heart come up. But fun fact about that, back in the day, we had a Lord of the Rings watch, okay? And Dad bought like a mini popcorn machine, a mini hot dog machine. No, that was the second time. We did a full watch the next year. But the first year, when the third movie was coming out, Dad had a bunch of family over. Mom and Dad had a bunch of family over, including me. And we watched the first two movies, and then we all went to the movies and watched the third one together. So it was about probably 15 or more of us. I don't know, but it was pretty awesome and definitely memorable. So and then the next year, that's when he bought like the mini popcorn machine. We had a whole menu going, and I got to create the menu. And I say that because puns galore. And even a little hot dog roller, right, for the entire day. So we did the full trilogy on that day too. So that was a good time, and those are one of the memories that we have, and when we watch them. But it is definitely a watch I like having every year or so. So it was great. It was great. So about a year or two ago, Dad and I watched this just randomly late at night. We started in the afternoon and didn't finish till about 11 o'clock at night. So yesterday we started early, which is why there was no show. So today we're on day 7 of shadow work. And this is how to do shadow work part 2. But I'm going to reread part 1, which was recognize shadow aspects. First, notice certain repeating behaviors in your life. And number 2, labeling shadow aspects. Once you can recognize those patterns, try to backtrack and identify what's really happening or what kind of things bring out these parts of you. I'm going to talk about that later because I had one yesterday. It was not nice. So anyways, today, how to do shadow work, part 2, number 3 and 4. So number 3, identifying with the shadow aspects. At this point in the process, try to figure out where and what the behaviors, where the behaviors might be coming from. Oh, I'm sorry. I see. I know. I'm sorry. My writing, I had to cross something out because I'm just adding my own crap in here. So again, identifying with the shadow aspects. At this point in the process, try to figure out where/what the behaviors might be coming from. And number 4, owning the shadow aspects. Finally, accept that these things are ongoing patterns in your life. Sometimes or something you are responsible for catching yourself doing and then changing it. So Monday we're going to do the exercise for this, and then Tuesday we're going to finish up shadow work. We're going to do the recap. So again, number 3, identifying with the shadow aspects. At this point in the process, try to figure out where or what the behaviors might be coming from. So I talked about this just now, saying I got a good one to share. And labeling shadow aspects. Once you can recognize those patterns, try to backtrack and identify what's really happening or what kinds of things bring out these parts of you. So to me, this kind of goes with number 3 because you're identifying it, and then you're working on figuring out how to stop these behaviors before they happen. Well, I'm not proud of this, but I told you, shadow work and doing these things, it becomes, depending on where the trauma comes from, depending on the kind of person you are or what you might be dealing with in every moment, the shadow is a constant, balance of light and dark. All right, so last night, poor sibling just got an earful from me, and I was just pulling everything out from under the sun, and I'm not proud of it. I am actually rather ashamed of it. I'm still ashamed of it, and I can't wait to talk to her this morning, because even though I did do my apology and stuff yesterday, it was uncalled for. It was uncalled for, and I think a lot of it was just stress. A lot of it was just, I don't know, there was a lot of things. Guilt. Guilt is something that I carry unnecessarily. unnecessarily. Life happens, and when it happens and when it's not going the way we want it to go, I tend to feel guilty about it, but instead of dealing with it, I don't recognize not the behavior or the pattern until it's too late. And last night, that's exactly what happened. It became too late, and I found a zillion and one reasons to just unleash on sibling. Now, it wasn't like the old days where I made her cry, all right? But it was still uncalled for. But as I was doing it, I recognized that behavior, but for some reason, I just couldn't stop. And, I'm not, I'm not trying to make me look like the bad guy here. And this is rather embarrassing on my part because, I just talked about all this stuff on Wednesday. But I think the point I'm trying to make, and by kind of exposing this behavior, this very recent behavior, I want people to understand, and even myself, that, when we heal things, when we go through things, when we are troubled by things and we knee jerk or we trigger or whatever it is, if we don't learn how to manage these behaviors and these patterns, these are the things that are going to happen. Instead of sitting down and thinking about it and going, okay, you know what do we need to do to resolve this situation? I just did what I used to do. I just had 5,000 reasons to be mad about it and then had to do the apology tour after. And that's not good for anybody because you got a person on the other side feeling horrible because you've just kind of scolded them for 9 million things that really aren't their fault. And then you got you feeling bad because once especially now, once you understand the behavior, I mean, imagine what it used to be like when it was a couple days down the road and you're like, oh my God. And then it's festered for this long. So I'm not proud of the behavior, but the reason I'm sharing that and the reason I'm sharing it out in the open today is because I want people to remember, including myself, that the shadow takes constant work. It doesn't have to be something that you say, oh, I gotta spend an hour today on my shadow work. No, just recognize your behaviors. If you feel like you're starting to just go in a direction you don't want to go in and it really doesn't feel right, stop yourself and just go, okay, what am I doing here? Let me think this through. And you can even tell the person on the other side, you know what, I gotta think this through because for some reason I'm getting mad over dumb stuff. And I was just talking about this to someone else the other day. They're like, I don't know why I get so mad about this stuff. And it's really, it was just nothing. They weren't mad at anyone. They were just kind of yelling just to be yelling. And they're like, I don't know why, and blah, blah, blah. And it's like, I'm usually not landing, it's just like, hey, you know what? There's a lot of stress happening. There's a lot going on right now. It's just you're unleashing, okay? And you're finding outlets for it. And as long as it's not at anybody, you're okay. It's probably not the healthiest way, but as long as you're getting it up and out, then, because not everybody's into journaling. I'm telling you, journaling is a fantastic thing. I haven't really journaled in the last 2 days. I've just kind of half-assed it. Like, yeah, dude, watched Lord of the Rings yesterday, and yeah, too tired to journal. That's been my post. It was like literally this much space on the page. But now I realize that journaling is an important part for me. And I will be doing a lot of journaling today. Because I gotta nip that pattern in the bud. But now I realize it, it's one of those other, shadow work epiphanies by Shelley Murray. I realized that, I've never worked on the guilt aspect of my shadow. I've worked on the shame, I've worked on the anger, I've worked on the pain, I've worked on the sadness, I've worked on the loneliness. But, I never worked on the guilt part. And I probably should, I should, because apparently that is a part of the darker shadow of me. And yeah, Sammy says it perfectly. The pressure builds up sometimes and it has to come out some kind of way. It does. And and like I said, as long as it's not at somebody, go for it. I was just kind of like, okay. I just sat there, like, I didn't take it personally, but it's like, okay, he's just, just letting it out. I didn't want to say it was my dad. We were watching the Padre game, and the next day he's just like, I don't know why I get like that. And I'm like, it's not normal for him either, but he has a lot of stress happening in his life right now. There's a lot going on that is just starting to kind of even itself out again. So it's been a journey these last couple of months, and I understand it. I understand the frustration and the, you know, just the upending of everything that's happened to him. You know, I mean, it's upended my life a little by having to be here, but my life isn't really affected by it. I mean, like, I go back to my life, you know, in a couple of weeks, but his has changed because of some of the stuff that's happened in the interim. So it's a matter of learning how to rebalance, and it's a matter of learning how to kind of readjust. You know, it's like when you're driving with the GPS, you know, recalculating. So, you know, so when we identify with the shadow aspects, at this point in the process, try to figure out where or what the behaviors might be coming from. Mine is just stress. And that's where my guilt came from. You know, there's a lot of underlying issues that I have to deal with when I go home. And a lot of it is, I mean, it's all my stuff, but it's just, you know, the amount of stress that's just been piled on over the last 5 or so years, especially while I've been spiraling into the oblivion. It's not been pretty. And I think one of the problems with my shadow is that I'm used to being in control of things. And even to the point where sometimes it did feel controlling, not over people necessarily, although sometimes, you know, I tried to be, but I never won those battles. I'm gonna tell you right now, I never won those battles. But in my mind, it's like, okay, well, I tried. But no, but where I tried to, you know, put everything in my life in order. Everything made sense. Everything had a place. Even if I wasn't that happy or just barely content, you know, it was like everything was the status quo, and that was okay. But, you know, the status quo has been upended, and not by what's happening now, but just over the last couple of years. The status quo has been upended. It's been very difficult to deal with. And because it's been very difficult to deal with, I think some of my patterns are showing themselves again. And I don't want that to happen, because I am not proud of that person that, you know, used to just lose their shit. I'm proud of the person that, you know, did what they could to survive. I empathize with that person. I'm proud of the person that I've become. But I realize, you know, even though I said that with everybody else, that yeah, I'm going through this with you, I forgot how deeply I was going through this with you, because I discovered last night, oh, hey, you know, and maybe that's why it had to happen. It's not fair to older sibling that it had to happen that way, but it is something that I recognize and something that I know I need to take care of. So, you know, like I said, lots of journaling happening today. So we have to learn how to figure out where and what these behaviors come from. This particular one was absolutely 100% guilt, because I haven't been the me that I know I can be and should be over the last 4 or 5 years. I know it's a long time. It's been it was not a journey for the faint of heart. Let me put it that way. But it was definitely something that I needed, and it was definitely something that was desperately needed and much needed. And I think it's really what kind of flipped the tide. It's what got me from the sea of misery, stuck in the wall of waves, right? The emotions that sit between the sea of misery and the ocean of bliss. Now, the ocean of bliss, that doesn't mean there are not storms out there. It means we handle them better. It means that in the sea of misery, you're sitting there like, you know, like if you've seen Moana, okay, if you saw the first one, then you realize that she was not, you know, a voyager at first. She learned how to do these things. She was not necessarily sitting in her sea of misery, but she was sitting in a sea of just, you know, we got to be safe over here. You know, we're safe over here. We don't go out there. We can't do that stuff, blah, blah, blah. And she's like, screw you. I'm off. I am off to go, you know, find the answers to save our people. But she had to learn how to be a seafarer. She had to learn how to be that voyager. And she learned over time. And throughout the course of the movie, you see her getting better and better and better, to the point where you get to Moana 2, and she's like, yeah, you know, I am the bomb. So that being said, it's kind of that same thing. When we understand these shadow parts of ourselves, when we understand where these, behaviors are coming from, we can reconfigure them so that we don't lose our mind when they just pop up. And a lot of times they're going to surprise you, like someone punching you in the face for no reason, right? You're just going to be like, whoa, what happened? What did that come from? It can slap you so hard that, you're upended. And sometimes when we're upended, we lose our mind. And that's what we're trying not to do. So number 4, owning the shadow aspects. Finally, accept that these things are ongoing patterns in your life, something you are responsible for catching yourself doing and then changing it. I literally just talked about that. I did. I just talked about that, and I shared my own experience from last night, okay, where I just not proud of this behavior. Absolutely not proud of this behavior. Yeah, super embarrassed by it. Super embarrassed by it. But I'm going to journal about it, because if I keep it inside, it's going to push down and it's going to explode into something different. And that's not what we want. We don't want it to become something so big from something so small, right? The mighty oak comes from an acorn, but the mighty oak provides much. When we take these little negative seeds and let them grow into something big, that's just basically going to be something that's just swatting you around. Like that tree from Harry Potter, I forgot what it was called. The weeping tree, or I can't remember, but that tree was an angry tree. That was a mad tree. That tree was just, that tree was people when we lose our shit. So, thank you, Muddy. Sammy says you're owning it though, and that is beautiful. Thank you. I appreciate that. Okay, I appreciate that. That was needed. And I know we don't always have people who are going to sit there and go, I see you, and I see what you're doing, and I see that you're trying. Now, here's the funny thing. Sibling, no matter what happened last night, no matter how much she's hurting today, she'll be like, it's okay. It's okay. But I do need to have I need to talk to her this morning, because, I feel bad. And, I appreciate the kind words, and I'm trying. As Sibling would say, we're all doing the best we can every day. And I used to hate that saying, because I was like, nope, I could be doing better. We all could be doing better. But, in that moment, but then I realized when I started to learn how to live in the moment, when I started to learn to not live so far in my future that I forget that I'm in the present, that I realized, yeah, every day, some days may be better, some days may be worse. And yesterday was a great day, and it did not end on a high note. And, but that is owning the shadow aspect. That is saying, hey, you know what? I saw what I did there. I need to make my amends for it. And, I know I use the word amends, but amends is highly used in AA and NA and GA, all the A's, okay, all the A's. But no, Sibling was an adult. Well, Sibling was a child of an alcoholic, and so she had me read the book, because it was an interesting book, like Children of Alcoholics. And I'm not. My parents weren't. My parents were not alcoholics, but she had me read it because it was interesting how I talked about all the trauma that we all might struggle with, but once we get to that starting line of that healing journey, the trauma, no matter what you've been through, the journey is going to be that difficult one ahead. It is going to be, not everyone's not going to have the same journey, but when we get there, we're all realizing, hey, anything that's happened to me, I need to heal. And I realized that a lot of the behaviors that, I exhibited were things that were in this book, from someone who'd been through something completely different than what I'd been through. And I think I'm not sure if she was just trying to make me understand, or I'm not sure what it was, but she was just showing me that, trauma can come from all directions. But when we get to this point where we want to heal, we're all taking that leap together and saying, okay, I'm going to be here for you, because even though our journeys may be different, I see you. I see that you're struggling with something, I'm struggling with something, but we can walk this path together and try to heal our whatever bits of us need to be healed, or all of us that needs to be healed. So it was a very fascinating book. It really was. And I have recommended it to other people that I know have been children of, like abuse, substance abuse and stuff. So I got very lucky in that department that was not me. But she did, just for all the people going, oh my God, what happened to her? She did get sober. She was sober by the time I met her. And even though I did not get to know her for very long, because she did pass away within a year and a half of me meeting her, actually 2 years within me meeting her. One of the best people I've ever met in my life. We became so close that I became the other daughter. So that was definitely an honor on my part. So, we strive to be the best we can every day. Sibling's not wrong about that. And today I'm going to talk to her, and then here's the most important part that most people don't talk about. No matter what happens, whether you get the forgiveness or not, you have to let it go. You have to let it go. Because if you don't, it will build again until it explodes. Because you're going to be overthinking it. You're going to be feeling more guilty about it. You're going to be feeling more shame about it. Then those might either turn to you spiraling into depression because you're sad about it, or spiraling into depression through anger. And that's for the people with the dinged up mental health. If you don't have a dinged up mental health, it can either make you sad to the point where you just kind of like, oh man, or you're embarrassed to be around these people, or it's going to cause anger, and you're just going to explode at someone else, and then you're on a new apology tour, and you don't want to do that. So the one thing I wish I learned years and years and years ago, which is the most obvious thing, right? It feels like it's the most obvious thing, but for a lot of us, we hold on to it like an anchor. I was raised a Catholic, so Catholic guilt is very real. Catholic guilt is very real. And don't think I don't know how to wield that weapon. Sadly, I do. But, I try not to. But I have noticed it's like, oh, I'm pretty good at this. Not the weapon you want in your arsenal. Not the weapon you want in your arsenal. Unless the person's an asshole. Then, if they're a douchebag, guilt them to hell and back. All right, but... That's when the weapon in your arsenal is really effective. And sometimes it works. Sometimes it gets them thinking like, oh, but yeah. Just the jury will disregard that, okay? Strike that from the record. We do not need to go in that direction. But anyways, I'm not really religious anymore, but there are things, you can take the Catholic girl out of the church, but you can't take the Catholic out of her. So, oh God. Hi, you can come to me for, bad advice. But anyways, redirecting. So again, identifying with the shadow aspects. At this point in the process, try to figure out where or what the behaviors might be coming from. I gave you my own personal example. Not proud of it, but I did. And 4, owning the shadow aspects. Finally, accept that these things are ongoing patterns in your life, something you are responsible for catching yourself doing and then changing it. I will be working on that today. I didn't see guilt coming. I should have, considering what I just said to you, but I didn't. And I think because it's been such a big part of my life, feeling guilty about everything in my life and feeling bad about everything in my life, even stuff that hasn't happened to me or stuff I didn't cause, it's like, oh my God, I feel so bad about that. And then I feel guilty because it's like, what could I have done? It's like, you couldn't do anything. It wasn't even your issue. Just step away, Shelly Marie, step away. And so there's that. All right. So we just let it go. Number 5, that's not on here. Let it go. Let that shit go. Okay? Because it is not doing you any good. It is not going to help you to hold on to it and let it fester. Do what you need to do to make things right. Okay? Do what you need to do to make things right, not just with that person, but with yourself. If it means journaling, journal. If it means writing on your phone in your journal, do it. If it means singing your little heart out wherever you're going, or going to the top of a private mountain and screaming, whatever it is you need to do, let it go. Do not hold on to it, because it is not worth it. It is not worth it, and it's just going to become something else. So let it go. All right. So again, Monday we'll do the exercise for these. This will be fun. I'll do a recap of these. We'll do the exercises, and then Tuesday we're going to do the key points, and we're just going to close it up. All right. So again, thank you, Sammy, so much for coming on, my muddy twin. I love you. And yeah, go out there, do good things today, people. Be a good human. Just be a good human. You know, I'm going to go out there. I'm going to be a good human. I'm going to stop this and start my day being a good human. So, you know, but yeah, just, we do the best we can every day. So if you have a moment, do what you can to you know, to make things right, and then let it go and move on. Okay, move forward. All right, so I'll see everybody back here Monday. Have a great day, everybody. 8:30 a.m. Pacific time, Facebook Live. All lives are public. You can find me on as Shelly Marie Lucas, the Aloha Perspective, Goalie Fan 1973, or Shellbell's Quest across the board. You know, actually, Shellbell's Quest is Twitter, but the rest is either the Aloha Perspective or Shelly Marie Lucas. You can find me there. Instagram, I think my main one is the Aloha, or is Goalie Fan 1973. So anyways, have a great day, everybody. Thank you again so much for watching. Sammy, again, love you, girl. And thank you, Muddy Twin, for the kind words. I really, really appreciate it. So have a great day, everybody. Have a wonderful and safe weekend, and I will see you on Monday. Thanks for watching. If I can turn this off.